I'm Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of today's newsletter is going to be standing up for your woman. So I've got an email here from a guy. This particular guy, he's been following me for about 8 years. And I did a phone session with him back in 2014. And so he just sent me an email, and recently, after about 6 years of marriage, his wife was like on the verge of leaving him. And he's shocked to find out why. It's like he dated and courted her properly, tended to communicate with her properly, but he failed to stand up for her to other people, especially when they were being abusive towards his wife. So this is a real interesting email because I've only had probably a handful of these kinds of emails over the years. And I can't remember the name of it. It was probably 6, 8, 9 years ago. I had another one. A guy, his church pastor was kind of being a jerk to his fiance. And it wasn't clicking with him what the problem was. And because this pastor was just being a jerk to his wife and he wasn't standing up to the pastor and putting him in his place, his wife didn't feel safe and comfortable. And therefore, she was thinking about calling the wedding off because she just didn't want to get married there because she didn't like the pastor. And so when he told me what was going on, I was like, you need to go put the pastor in his place and you need to speak up for your wife on his behalf because she doesn't feel safe and comfortable. If you're going to just sit there and allow other people to abuse your woman, she's not going to like it. And so this particular guy, he obviously had the same kind of problem and it just didn't click. He didn't realize what he was doing wrong. So I got a quote that I wrote, and then we'll go through his email. The quote says, if you have friends, family members, your church pastor, or other people who are rude or abusive towards your woman, and you don't stand up to them on her behalf, she will lose attraction and interest. Why? If you allow jerks and other feral humans to be rude and abusive towards your woman, she won't trust your masculine core. She will no longer feel safe and comfortable around you and will move into her masculine energy to make up for your lack of masculinity. If you can't protect your woman from physical, mental, or emotional abuse from other people, she won't feel like you are man enough to keep her safe. In order for a woman to be feminine and submissive and trust your leadership and feel safe and comfortable enough to let you lead, she's going to defer to you for her safety and her comfort. And this is not just physical safety and comfort. It's also emotional and mental abuse from other people. And so you'll see this guy had a bunch of it going on from a bunch of different people. And he finally realized what the problem was because his wife was able to actually get through. She even sent him an article on the particular topic. So let's go through his email. He says, hey, Coach, I've been a big fan of your work for 8 years. I read your 2 books a lot. So obviously he's talking about 3% Man, the first book, and Mastering Yourself, the second book. You can read them both for free at understandingrelationships.com. Just subscribe to the email newsletter. So he said, I did a phone coaching session. That was back in 2014, so it was like 7 years ago. And then later you responded with a great video called Come Have Your Way With Me. Your work has been so helpful over the years. I also just gave you a $50 donation. Well, donations are always appreciated. You can go to understandingrelationships.com. On the toolbar at the bottom of your screen, you can press the donate button if you're so inclined. He says, I've been in AA for most of my life, working hard to be the best version of myself I could be, and I use the principles I learned from you in your books daily. Anyway, I never learned these things you teach from them. It's like a blind spot everywhere. So you taught me to be a man and be a confident person and get some great dates. I did settle down with Jessica and have a pretty great life, a bunch of good kids, and an awesome woodworking business. I just realized recently that I am still missing something in my life. I didn't stick up for my wife. I didn't see how it is important. Well, if you're the head of the household, dude, That's part of your duties. You just can't sit there. You shouldn't do this with anybody. You don't let other people abuse you. You don't let other people abuse your kids. And you certainly don't let other people abuse your wife. That's a beta male move. He says, I attached an article my wife gave me while we were on the ropes after 6 years. Really on the ropes. She was close to being done with me, and this has blown my mind. It's not because I'm a pleaser to her. It's not because I stopped dating her or was not confident or healthy or that I wasn't successful in business. I just didn't understand how or why I needed to stick up for her when my mom criticized her. Yeah, dude, I don't know where you got that it's okay to let other people abuse your woman. Well, you certainly didn't learn that shit from me. I mean, that's kind of common sense. You don't allow people to abuse. You can't just stand there and let it happen. He says, or when my kids ignored her. So it sounds like they've got a blended marriage, and so some of his kids are being an ass to her. And you tolerate that. Now you're allowing the children to divide the two of you. Because the number one most important thing has to be your relationship with your wife. You can't allow kids, your boss, your employer, your neighbors, your mother, or anybody to come between the two of you or interfere in that. I mean, that's just kind of common sense. He says, or when my manager put her in her place, or when a neighbor was a jerk. Literally, that's all I didn't do. Well, that's a major problem, dude. If she's going to trust your masculine core to be the leader, you got to stand up for her. You don't just sit there and let people berate her and abuse her in front of you and just sit there like a schmuck and watch it happen to her. It's like, come on, man, seriously. He says, you don't seem to have any videos on example stories on being one with your girl. Like I said, it's not a common problem I get questions about, but I have had a few over the years, like one being the church pastor, but I have no idea what the title of that video was or article because it's 6 or 8 years old at least. He says, I think I did mention that example in the, I think it was a 2016 version of 3% Man. So maybe you read an older version or something, but I actually believe I included it in there. Or at least I was talking about it in the book. He says, like examples of, if you don't treat her good, you are not treating me good, and stick up for her. I always think and say, babe, we are tough enough. So in other words, when you say something like that, hey, it's okay to allow other people to abuse us because we're tough, we'll just let it roll off us. So in other words, you're allowing the two of you to be abused by other people, and you're not standing up for yourself or her in those examples. He says, these people don't matter. Let them be. Be confident in who you are, baby. Don't worry about them. Yeah, that shit's not going to fly, bro. That just ain't going to work. You're completely making your woman feel helpless, like you won't defend her. And on top of that, when she calls you out for it, you're like, hey, it's fine. It's okay. That's not okay, dude. It's never okay to allow other people to abuse you or your girl or your family or your kids. He says, would you mind reading the attached article? I don't ever open attachments from the internet, so just for viruses. I always have a lot of people trying to hack me and my website and everything and steal my social media, so I don't ever mess with any of that stuff. So he says, would you mind speaking to this? Maybe you have, but I did try to find some videos. Well, like I said, the latest edition of the book, which was updated in 2016 for the audiobook, I'm pretty sure that example about the pastor was in there. He says, at least for me, I'm also not able to understand this article. I know it sounds impossible. So he says, how do I do this? I'm just learning. So, okay, so let's take some examples. Let's say your mom is just being an absolute cunt to your wife. No other way to describe it. She's just being a bitch to her. I would look right at her and say, Mom, don't talk to my wife like that. You're being abusive, you're being rude and disrespectful, and you're in our home, and you need to be nice and sweet. We can talk, we can work things out, but don't talk to her like that. And if your kids are ignoring her, just say, don't ignore her like that. You need to treat her with respect. But when you do nothing and you allow it to continue, like she's supposed to stand up first, these are your children. They're not her children. She's obviously a stepmother to them, but you can't allow that. You can't allow your kids to get away with that, because now you're allowing your kids to drive a wedge between the two of you. So that's not acceptable. If your manager is being rude to your, I don't know what was going on with your wife or what she was doing, but you said the manager kind of put her in her place. Maybe he was just a dick to her or whatever. But if your wife hadn't done anything to warrant that, you should have said, hey, I'd appreciate if you don't talk to my wife like that. That's kind of rude and abusive and disrespectful. It's like, I don't care who I'm working for. I don't give a shit if it was a business partner or a friend or a family member. It's like, that shit's not going to fly. You're not going to talk like that to my girl, especially in front of me. I don't care who he is. I'll go find another fucking job. That's my attitude towards those things, because I will, and I have in the past. So as a self-reliant human being, you got to take 100% responsibility for all aspects of your life. So those are just, like I said, and the case with the church pastor, like I said, I'm pretty sure that was the one that was in the book, but what the guy did was that he went back to the pastor and he's like, hey, my wife's really upset. She's at the point now where she doesn't even feel comfortable with you doing our vows, and I want my wife, future wife, to be happy. I want my family to be happy. We got all this money on the line, and so what I need you to do is to sit down with my wife and apologize for being a jerk to her. And once he sat down and he had this conversation with the pastor realized what he did, and he obviously felt remorseful about it. And so he went and apologized to the guy's fiance. She felt happy. She felt safe and comfortable because he stood up for her. And not only did he stand up for her, but he resolved it. He handled the problem. That's what masculine energy is. It's about handling the problem. And there are problems coming up, and you just try to sweep it under the rug. So, again, that's not something you learn from me. Maybe that's the way you were, but that's not what my book teaches. I would never say or insinuate anything like that. You're the head of the household, dude. It's up to you. It's up to you to defend your woman to other people, because that's how she feels safe and comfortable trusting you to be the leader. Because when you allow her to be abused in front of you by other people and you just sit there like a little bitch and you don't do anything about it, now you're forcing her into her masculine energy because you're not man enough to do that for her. So if you're going to be the leader of the household, this is part of your realm of responsibilities that you're going to need to handle. And I'm sure some of the beta males that follow me are going to be bitching, the guys that got mommy issues, that hate women, because we have blocked a bunch of people on one of the Instagram posts the other day just for, some of these guys get in the red pill community and they read some of the books in there, and it's like, these guys are fucked up. And they're learning from people that are fucked up. And then they just absolutely hate women, and they look at women as a disposable commodity, when the problem is they're trying to turn hoes into housewives, and they do a shitty job at pre-qualifying the women that they date, and so all women are like this. Well, it's like, no, they suck at pre-qualifying the women that they date. That's their problem, and they want to blame other people for it. But like I said, you just can't allow this shit to happen. You are the king of your castle, and if anybody comes into your castle to abuse your tribe, you need to nip that shit in the bud, and you need to resolve it, and you need to solve it. That's your responsibility. If you don't like it, that's part of being a man, dude. If you don't like it, well, then obviously you shouldn't be in a relationship with a woman if you can't handle that. If that's too much to ask, don't do it, dude. So if you've got a situation or a challenge that you'd like to get my help with, go to understandingrelationships.com, click the products tab at the top of your screen, and book a coaching session with yours truly. Until next time, I will talk to you soon.